Hey, what's up? My name is J.M. Chaley and welcome to my channel. This week I want to talk about mythology, specifically Greek mythology, because that's a very, very popular mythology among the many different mythologies out around the world to choose from. And the basic theme is going to be about taking mythology and putting it into your stories so that you own them. They're your version. You spin them how you want to. You interpret them how you want to. But to do that, we need to dive into the mythology and take a look at it and understand how these stories were created, how they were received, when they were written, and what they're about. Within the many, many stories of Greek mythology, there are conflicts. And I'm just going to name a few. Metis, who is the wife of Zeus before Hera. In some versions of the story, Metis was a titan. She was one of the many titans that predated Zeus and his generation of gods. And he married a titan. In another version, Metis was an Oceanid, which was a sea nymph. And there were like 10,000 Oceanids. And he selected one of them to be his wife. So which is it? Was she an Oceanid or was she a Titan? Following along with the story of Metis, there was a prophecy that said that one of Zeus's children would slay him. And it turned out that Metis was with child. Zeus was like, nah, can't have that. So he tricked her to transform herself into, well, here's another conflict. Some versions of the story, he tricked her into turning into a drop of water, which he ate, drank, whatever. In another version, he tricked her into turning into a fly, which he ate. Now, Metis, in Zeus's belly, eventually gave birth to a daughter, and out came Athena from Zeus's skull. That's another story. But right there, in that small origin story of Athena, we have multiple conflicts. So if you're pulling from Greek mythology, first of all, does it matter who Metis was or what she turned into? Is that important? Maybe not. To your story, if you're pulling from Greek mythology. But there are other examples of that. I have sirens that I'm writing about. That's very important. The origins of the sirens are very important to what I'm writing. And in the story of Demeter and Persephone, where Persephone is snatched away by Hades, right? She is attended by guardians, companions. And in some versions of the story, these companions are Oceanids. Again, these sea nymphs. Why they're not in the ocean, I don't know, but whatever. In some versions, they're Oceanids that are following her around. In other versions of the story, they are the sirens that are keeping an eye on Persephone and making sure that she's safe. Of course, she gets taken away. Now, the sirens themselves, there's some versions of the story that there were 5 of them. There are other versions of the story that there are 7 of them. Conflicts. So, for my case, I had to research all these different stories and think, what makes sense for my story? Which of these Greek myths makes sense? So, you're going to find lots of conflicts, and you're going to have to figure out which one is canon for your world. And you can write the stuff off and say, oh, yeah, this guy got it wrong, so-and-so got it wrong, this is the right version, blah, blah, blah. So when we talk about this guy and who got it wrong, let's talk a little bit about the authors, some of the authors of Greek mythology. So we got to start with Homer, right? Homer, right? The 8th century BC, 800 years BCE, right? 2,800 years ago. That's when this guy lived. He wrote the Odyssey and he wrote the Iliad, right? 2 epic, epic poems. So much of our Greek mythology comes from these two epic poems. If you're believing that these things actually happened, don't you want to start with the guy that's closest to when this happened? And that would be the earliest transcripts of these events. Another very prominent author was Pindar. Pindar lived in the 5th century BC, 2,500 years ago. He wrote a lot of poetry about victory and athletics and things like that, but he was also an avid worshiper of the gods and the goddesses. He believed this stuff with all his heart. He was a very religious person, and he penned his own stories as he imagined they would have taken place. It wasn't him just slinging bullshit. This was him like thinking, this is probably how it happened. This is how he imagined it. And it was out of reverence and love for and respect for the Greek gods and goddesses. I do kind of have to bring up Plato, who lived about 2,600 years ago. Plato, he's known for being a philosopher. That's what he's famous for. But he was also the first guy to mention Atlantis and talk about kind of where it was and how it sunk into the sea and all this kind of stuff. And Atlantis is so prevalent in so much fantasy fiction. You gotta kind of put Plato on the list of folks to look at when you're looking at Greek mythology, especially if you have a setting that involves Atlantis, any of that kind of stuff, Atlantean stuff. Plato is definitely your guy that you'll want to go to. Now, there were many, many other authors during ancient Greece, but we're going to skip ahead because we could be here all day talking about different authors. We're going to skip ahead to the Roman Empire, where Rome worshipped the Olympians, the same ones, but gave them different names, right? Zeus became Jupiter, Hera became Juno, so on and so forth. We're going to get to this guy named Ovid. Ovid was not a believer. He was the opposite of like a Pindar, who loved the gods and goddesses. Ovid thought all of this religion, all the worship of the Olympians was bullshit. He didn't believe any of it. But he was a poet, and he saw a way that he can make money off his stories. And he penned a lot of these stories. He didn't believe any of this shit. This would be like a flat earther writing a book on astronomy. But let me get into why I don't like Ovid. My favorite deity, god or goddess, in the Greek pantheon, hands down, is Athena. I love Athena, goddess of wisdom and war. I mean, you put these two things together and she just kicks ass. And she's awesome. And when you read the original Greek myths of her, she's powerful, she's smart, she's resourceful, she kicks ass, she beat the shit out of Ares, right? She is awesome. And Ovid just did her wrong. Oh my God. So let's talk about I don't want to get too far off track, but I want to talk about two of the stories of Ovid that just wrecked Athena, you know? And these two stories are considered, canon. If you ask the average person on the street about this, they're like, oh yeah, Athena. So, first story is Arachne. The origin story of Arachne, who was a wonderful weaver. She was a very talented weaver, a mortal woman. She was very, very skilled at weaving. She was like the best weaver in the land, whatever. And somebody said, Arachne, you're such a great weaver, you're better weaver than the gods. Well, who gets upset about that? Not Hera, who you'd think, Hera, that would be in her wheelhouse. But no, it's Athena. Athena gets pissed off and she says, oh, the best weaver in the land, better than the gods? Fuck her. So she goes down, turns herself into an old woman, and challenges her to a weaving contest. And they have the weaving contest. Arachne wins, beats Athena, and Athena's so mad, she says, you bitch, I'm going to make sure you weave for the rest of your life, and turns her into a spider. And that's the origins of spiders. Okay, so Athena's now this petty, spiteful bitch, sore loser, the goddess of wisdom. Come on. But that story doesn't hold a candle to Medusa. Now, not only did Medusa get written wrong with Ovid, because Medusa was one of the Gorgons. She used her stone sight powers to defend herself and to ward off enemies and stuff like that. She had sisters who were other Gorgons. No. He plucked Medusa out of a story and rewrote the whole damn thing. We know the story, right? Poseidon was looking to assault Medusa. Just leave it at that. Medusa ran to try to find some help. She ran into Athena's temple. Athena got mad at Medusa, not Poseidon, at Medusa, and cursed her to be this snake-haired, ugly, whatever. The snake thing didn't happen until the Clash of the Titans movie in the 1970s, so we can ignore that part. But the snake head and all this kind of stuff, that's all, the curse of Athena got mad at her, the goddess of wisdom. The goddess of wisdom. Victim blaming. Sure. That's an Ovid story. Let's put it in greater context. Poseidon and Athena hated each other. Why would, victim blaming is bad enough, but I'm sorry, I'm getting so worked up about this. Poseidon and Athena hated each other. They had a contest about who would be naming the city of Athens. Like, who would have the honor of the city of Athens being named after? Would it be Athena or Poseidon? The city's named Athens. Guess who won? But the story goes like this. The people of the yet unnamed city wanted to name it and honor a god. So Poseidon came in and said, well, I'm your guy. You can name your city, Poseidonopolis or whatever. And I will vie for this competition. And Athena's like, the hell you will. You can name it after me. And Poseidon's like, well, I'm the god of the sea. So I'll give you water. Plenty of water. All the water you want. And their wells were filled with water. And they were like, awesome. Plenty of water. This is salt water. He gave them salt water to drink. Athena's like, you're dumb. And Athena swooped in and gave them the olive tree. She invented olives, right? And they were like, olives? Oh, these are excellent. We can make oil and do all sorts of stuff with them. We put them on pizza. Kick ass. Boom. They named the city Athens. And ever since then, Poseidon was like, you bitch. They don't like each other. So in my universe, where I dip into Greek mythos in my universe, all the Ovid stories are out the fucking window. That stuff didn't happen. The Arachne thing didn't happen. The Medusa thing didn't happen. Medusa's a Gorgon. She was never cursed by Athena. All that stuff, I said, screw that. Bullfinch. Now, Bullfinch was around in the mid to early 1800s, and he wrote a mythology book, and it was based on a compilation of all the kind of people that came before him. And he really wasn't necessarily writing his own, but he did take the poetry and condense it into more of a story format that was more easily consumed by the average reader. So he became very, very popular, and he brought mythology kind of to the modern world to make it, as I said, more easily consumed, so people didn't have to read these big giant epic poems and whatnot. Edith Hamilton. Now, if you're a lover of Greek mythology and you don't have Edith Hamilton in your library, I highly recommend. Your Greek collection is remiss without Edith Hamilton. She is amazing. She was amazing. You had the Greek Way, which was her first book in 1930, and then you had a book simply called Mythology in 1942. Both books are superior to Bullfinch's, honestly. And that's it. It's my opinion, but it's also the opinion of many other scholars who study Greek mythology. Bullfinch kind of compiled everything together. He did a great thing for the time, But Edith went deeper. She went back to the original poems, read the original poems. She was a scholar of these poems and really got into not just compiling them into a nice story format, but also talking about the authors themselves. And I think that's important. The first time I ever heard anybody trash Ovid was from Edith Hamilton, calling his writing immature, calling him out for being a Roman that didn't believe in any of the stories that he wrote about, basically being a charlatan. I mean, so not just telling us the stories, but advising us, hey, I'm going to tell you the story. It was written by so-and-so, but consider the source. It's kind of this. This story was written by so-and-so. Some people receive it this way. So if you're really talking about looking at Greek mythology for your book, your setting, she is almost like a guide that can help you identify which works might fit better in your story, depending on the story you're trying to tell from the narrative that you're looking at, what might belong better in your story. Okay, so that about wraps it up. Greek mythology, you can apply this to Norse mythology or any other kind of mythology you're interested in. Finding the source and finding, what's canon, what's not, what stories you want to keep, what don't. If you like this video, please give a like, and as always, please subscribe. I'm available on all hooked up. You can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And you can check out my content on jmchaley.com. Please be sure to check out The Unlife of Lisa Cooper. There are some God stuff that's coming. That's all I can say. It's coming. You're definitely involved in that. This universe takes place, I'm not wearing the shirt, in the same universe as my Siren story and all this kind of stuff. So it's definitely a place where the old gods still exist. Speaking of this shirt, this actual shirt is available in my merch store. If you want to check out my merch store, the link is in the description. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.